I liked this episode overall. There were some bad parts, of course, but overall I was impressed. But just like anything that I love, I can still tear it apart. So let's review the first episode of Game of Thrones and talk about my likes, dislikes, and some questions that I have. And I'm going to try to break this down by location as best as possible. This episode began with Jon Snow's dead body because they just want to twist that knife in for as long as they can. So let's start with the Wall. Ghost howling was heartbreaking. Davos then has men loyal to Jon bring him up to the room. And Davos spends a considerable time looking at Jon Snow's blood stain in the snow, and the camera focused on it for a bit longer as well. And I don't know if there's a hidden meaning behind that. The blood stain kind of looked like wings. You have to really kind of work it to look like wings. But to me, they kind of looked like wings and dark wings. So I don't know if it was a way of just emphasizing, yeah, he's really dead. He lost a lot of blood. He's not sleeping. He's dead. Or if it was a hint of some sort of clue for what's to come. Then they have their whole plan to defend Jon's body and get the wildlings to help defend his body as well, which is actually more than let's defend the dead body and more of a, oh shit, we're known to be loyal to Jon. We're probably next to be offed, and now we're gonna hole up in this room. Ed getting the wildlings is so exciting. I really want to see a battle between the members of the Night's Watch and the wildlings, and we know that they do side with Jon because they end up going to Winterfell and fighting alongside with Davos. At least from the trailers, that's what we're led to believe. Also, I'm so happy they brought Ghost in, even though his entire thing was so heart-tearing, his howling, and then him guarding Jon's body. There is some speculation whether Jon is actually in Ghost right now, especially given that Ghost was howling and going so crazy, but I would imagine that even if Jon didn't warg into Ghost, Ghost would still be going crazy with the death of his master. Thorne's meeting with the members of the Night's Watch. Love his admitting what he and the other officers had done. Jon's dead. We did it. Ballsy move. Though D&D said Thorne believes he did the right thing, so maybe that energy carried over. And the men of the Night's Watch are like, yeah, okay, he has a point. I mean, loyalty and following orders is the most important thing here and keeps things working, but yeah, screw it. We didn't like the decisions he was making anyhow. But also kind of think about it from their perspective. They're in a room with other members of the Night's Watch. They just get this surprising news that their Lord Commander is dead. And then Thorne says, yeah, we're all traitors. They don't know who he's referring to. Yeah, the officers did it, but who helped them do it? So you're in a room with a bunch of members of the Night's Watch, your brothers, and you don't know which one of those are loyal to Jon, which one of those are loyal to Thorne. Are you going to speak up? Are you going to be like, hell no, what you did was wrong. For all you know, there could be 50 men in that room that are for Thorne. You're probably going to keep your mouth shut, except for the super duper loyal people to Jon, who are already with his corpse. Also, holy shit, Ollie looks so smug about what he did. No remorse, not worried. Among the crowd of men that hadn't responded yet. Really? I think D&D first tried to make Ollie a likable or relatable character, and then once they realized there was such a large amount of people that hated him, they're just riding that train. They're trying to make him look as smug and dislikable as possible, and the look on his face, I just wanted to smack it off, but I don't like punishing children, so maybe put his nose in the corner and tell him what he did was very, very bad. And before somebody tells me yet again that I don't understand what Ollie's going through, yes, at one time I was a boy and living in Westeros and my family was murdered by wildlings, so I do understand what he's going through. I still think he's a little shit. Here's what I don't like about what Thorne did, because in the books it made a little bit more sense. In the show, we know Thorne and the others are scared of and or hate the wildlings. The only thing keeping them in control was Jon Snow. The wildlings respect Jon Snow. He is keeping them from messing things up. So, did they not think about having tons of wildlings at the Wall and what would happen if they killed Jon? I really don't care because I'm on board for the wildling army and I really want to see them start messing up things, so. Thorne, maybe you didn't think out everything you were doing, and their actions made a little bit more sense in the books, but for the show, I'm guessing just their overwhelming hate for the wildlings just blinded them, and they just wanted to take it out on Jon, who was befriending them. As he said in his speech, this is the first time ever that a Lord Commander has done what Jon has done. And I really think that might be a theme D&D are going for, is revenge and hatred and how that can just twist you and in the end just fuck you over. Then we have Thorne and his men knocking on the door where Jon's corpse is being kept. I wish we would have seen at least a few more members of the Night's Watch speak out against this and say, this is kind of screwed up. Okay, you killed the Lord Commander. Let's move on from that. But now you want to kill the men that are with his body? What are you doing? We need every man available because of the wildling threat that we now have, because the Lord Commander is probably not going to keep them in check. And we all know Thorne is going to kill Davos and the other loyalists to Jon. Davos confirmed that. And they were a bit subtle about this, which I appreciated, besides the men stationed outside with their weapons, of course. Davos questioning about getting food and Thorne being confused and then agreeing was a huge red flag to Davos. The Wall is hurting for food, and no way Thorne is giving away precious resources without haggling a bit. He gave in way too easy for Davos' taste. And like Davos said, he has many years of experience with men like that. I just love Davos so much. Davos saying Mel can save them and he's seen what she can do was very endearing, even though her advice led to the death of his lord and Shireen, but Davos doesn't hold a grudge. Stannis was a grown man, and he probably doesn't know yet that Mel was the one that burned Shireen. He just knows that Stannis went to war and both of them are dead. Then we got to the last scene of the episode where Mel looks so sad and defeated. She just looks like she's given up. The reveal that she's an old woman wasn't particularly shocking to me, and I think for a lot of book readers it's not going to be shocking either. It's basically canon at this point that Mel is a lot older than what she appears to be, and that she was using some type of illusion or glamour to hide herself and make herself appear more youthful. I will also point out, because I am still on that Jon Snow is coming back train, that Thoros also lost his faith, and I'm sure many people have pointed this out by now. I don't watch other reviews, so I don't know what other people are saying, but I know someone has pointed out by now, and I'm going to say it again. Thoros lost his faith completely in his god, and then brought back Beric Dondarrion. So the fact that we see Mel going down that same path of just losing faith in her god, to me is huge, huge flags that she's going to bring Jon back. Which I'm really happy with the attention to detail they put in this scene. Mel was cold and rubbing her hands in front of the fire, and she was going to sleep. Two things that shouldn't happen to her. She shouldn't be getting cold, and she rarely sleeps. And instead of giving her some big speech or crying out in anguish, we just saw her face and body language telling it all. That is a good actor. We didn't need a single word to know what she was going through in her head. Now we know the other Red Priest didn't have to give his life to bring back Beric, so I am a little curious how this is going to work with Mel, whether she's going to have to give her life, or if it's going to be like the other Red Priest, and she's just going to be able to say the words and bring Jon back. And if anyone tells me Jon's not coming back, you are a filthy liar. Get off this channel. You are not welcome here. Winterfell, Ramsay oddly endearing speech about Miranda. Feed her good meat to the dogs. So romantic. My heart melted at that line. Roose and Ramsay's dialogue. Roose had really planned on going against the Lannisters. Really, Roose? You planned on going against the Lannisters? I'm curious, we don't see a lot of the North, and this is why I question this. Because in the books, we know the climate in the North. We know what's going on with most of the houses, or we have a general idea of how they feel about the Boltons, and how they feel about serving them. In the show, we don't know that as much. We're not really in on the political climate of the North. How many houses are for the Boltons in the show? How many people are against the Boltons? We don't know, and we've even seen in the trailers that a house that is against him in the books is for him in the show. The other thought I had about that is it does kind of play into Book Roose, who is a little more confident in how many houses he has backing him and how much power he has in the North, and I honestly think in the next book that's going to slap him in the face. He's going to realize that things were not as well thought out as he had planned, and that not as many houses had his back. And this actually might be reflected in the show, where we see Roose going, oh yeah, if you have Sansa, we'll be able to unite the North and go against the Lannisters. And it's not that case at all, just like Roose in the books. Just, they have no idea the feeling of hatred towards them, or they have unrealistic expectations. That was a rambling statement, I'm sorry. I've been dealing with too many North videos lately, I think. I also like the jab at Ramsay that if there's no Sansa and there's no heir, looks like it's a good thing Fat Walda is likely going to give Roose a baby boy. And instead of Ramsay looking angry, he actually looked defeated. We actually got to see a different side of him this episode. Someone that lost someone that he loved, or had a really screwed up version of love, and then is being told, yeah, besides that, you might not be my heir anymore. So yeah, we love to hate Ramsay, he's an awful person, but being able to see a range of emotions in him is always appreciated. I honestly still expect for Ramsay's baby stabbing knives to come out, even though he looked very defeated in that scene. But I actually don't think he's going to live long enough this season to get his stabby time on, and that he's going to meet an end. What happens to Roose is probably not going to be pretty either. Then we jump to the Hounds that are after Sansa and Theon's path to redemption is nice to see. How much he cares for Sansa is so apparent, helping her through the river, hugging her to warm up her body, and then trying to sacrifice himself so that she can get away. Oddly enough, this scene actually put me through a range of emotions. At first, I was like, oh, Theon cares about Sansa, he's helping her, he's having redemption. And then the fight scene happened, and I was tickled pink. So the Hounds and the soldiers find Sansa, and then Brienne just comes out of nowhere on her horse. It was kind of funny. This woman just charging out of nowhere, swinging her sword, and killing people. What was Brienne doing before this? Bolton men never saw her or captured her hanging out in the woods. She just killed Stannis and then went about her business, waiting for a wild Sansa to appear. But back to the fight. I really didn't take most of that fight seriously because of the slight cringe laughing factor, but then after the fight, I went back to the aww, teary-eyed phase. Just seeing Brienne able to fulfill an oath, or begin to, for Catelyn Stark, was so much more rewarding than I thought it would be. Sansa not knowing the oath and Podrick helping her was just so amazing. I can't say enough how much I love the end of this scene. Brienne is so happy to be in her service again. I actually expected Sansa to be a little bit nervous when Brienne first showed up. I had expected for Sansa to try to run while Brienne was dealing with the soldier. Sansa doesn't know the true character of Brienne. So seeing this woman that saved her from the Boltons and has continuously been stalking her, she might think, yeah, this woman is really persistent and really wants me, and I am going to GTFO. But I'm actually really glad that they didn't add that in and they didn't have Sansa trying to get away from Brienne, and it just was this endearing moment that was like just letting out a breath of air that we had been holding for seasons as Brienne was trying to fulfill these oaths. Although here's a question, and this may have been answered somewhere on the internet, I don't know. What the hell happened to those Hounds? It was as if they were like, yeah, fuck this shit, I'm out. There's this crazy lady swinging around a sword, she came out of nowhere, I do not get paid enough for this, I am getting the hell out of here. And then they were just gone. My only thought is maybe someone that was in control of the Hounds was like, yeah, I'm getting out of here, and took the dogs with him. But if you have Hound conspiracy theories, put them in the comments below. I'm interested to see Brienne and Sansa's journey. Ramsay knows that Theon was likely taking her to Castle Black. Now I'm wondering if Sansa and Brienne are going to show up at the Wall just as the Wildling army and John are heading down to bust some heads in at Winterfell. King's Landing, I did really feel for Cersei when she knew that Myrcella was dead. The actress for Cersei is amazing as usual. You can just see that range of emotion on her faces. And HBO never, most of the time, I shouldn't say never, 99% of the time, never disappoints when it comes to their actors and actresses' ability. Kind of surprised she mentioned the prophecy to Jaime at this point, and not overly enthused about Jaime promising to take back everything, but I guess we'll see where this goes. Marjorie's kind of an afterthought. I do believe at one point she's going to confess that she saw her brother having sex with other men. Meereen and Daenerys, love Varys and Tyrion's dialogue. The baby eating gag was pretty funny. The only thing that was a little bit off about their conversation was Tyrion bringing up Varys' cock. I get the joke, it just fell kind of flat. Maybe that's the point. Tyrion is out of his typical element and flailing a bit. Although he does appear to be enjoying his new life. I did like the part in their conversation when they were talking about how people can't go anywhere in the city without someone wanting to murder them. And then those idiots, who are the advisors of Daenerys, are walking around the city, going towards where people are running away. The graffiti still bothers me. It looks way too neat to be paint, and the language it's in is just kind of odd. They put the graffiti in Common Tongue before in a previous season, but it just always seems off. The majority of the city doesn't speak Common Tongue. And then in the writings, there was a word in another language. It just seems a bit odd. I don't know if they just did it once and decided, oh hell, let's roll with it, or if it's some sort of clue as to who the Harpies are, or working under. Tyrion's calm reaction to the burning of the fleet was not what I expected. Jorah and Daario make fairly decent buddies. Then they found Daenerys' stupid ring. The kale bit was actually really funny. Seeing a beautiful woman naked for the first time is the best thing in the world. Better than killing another kale? Taking a city? Okay, among 5 best things in the world. If you would have told me last season seeing this kind of Monty Python skit would happen, I would not believe you. And seeing it, I wasn't really disappointed. I'm also glad that the Dothraki have a bro code. So that's very important, despite everything they do, despite how violent they are. You have to have a bro code. Dorne, I just don't know anymore. They knew a majority of the individuals didn't like the Sand Snakes, and it was as if they doubled down and said, no, they're important. They're badass. Look, they have the Palace Guards on their side and magic teleporters. Love them. Or else we'll take away Tyrion next. I will say, what a waste of Dorne's actor. Alexander is amazing, and it really seemed like such a waste. And I get it, in George's world and in their world, things are wasteful. Sometimes you have a grand plan and you just die. That's great. Why cast that man as Dorne if you weren't going to use him? There is so much more you could have done with him, or spotlighted him a little bit more, or made people that don't read the books care a little bit more about this man and realize that there was more to him. A thought I had, which might be influenced by the fact that I love Dorne's actor so much, is they could have done this a little bit better. What if they gave us a fire and blood speech, and him talking about, yeah, we're gonna get around to this, and then Illyria and the Sand Snakes come up to him and are like, yeah, no, it's too late, sorry, you gotta go. And then they do it. They could have given us a little bit more. D&D, you like hurting us. You like it. I know you do. Also, I don't like how a certain bodyguard went out like a little bitch, but I will accept it. I'm not even sure how the other Sand Snakes got to King's Landing to kill Trystane. Trystane went with Jaime and Myrcella on their ship to sit on the council at King's Landing. The Sand Snakes were even on the dock waving them off. So, did they take a faster ship? Did Jaime's ship have to stop once or twice, allowing the Sand Snakes to get caught up? I just choose to believe that they have magic teleporters, the same teleporter that Littlefinger has, and I desperately want it. Also, they are now kinslayers, which is really not good in the Seven Kingdoms. I wish we would have seen a little remorse for what they were doing. A little, hey, we're about to be hella cursed for this. No, instead they murder their family and then crack a little joke. How hilarious. Kinslaying. On top of that, they were pissed because people murdered their family member. Then they murdered their own family. Can they not see they're hypocrites? Hey, I loved our father. Or my lover. You know what would show him how much we loved him? Killing his brother and nephew. Destabilizing the country he loves so much. Remember, if you want to avenge someone, you should first start by killing their entire family. I'm choosing that they deliberately did this to show a parallel between the Sand Snakes, Illyria, and Oberyn. Oberyn's need for vengeance consumed him, and in the end led to his death. And I'd like to think they're doing the same thing with the Sand Snakes and Illyria. They're showing that this is consuming them. They're going on the same path that Oberyn is. They're making really bad decisions in the name of vengeance, and they're not really thinking everything through, and in the end, it's going to lead to their demise. And I mentioned this earlier in the review about the theme of revenge, and I really think that's what D&D are going for. Before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. And I'm really not surprised that the guards were on the Sand Snake side. Our first chapter of Dorne, we're beaten over the head with the fact that Dorne wants to fight, to go to war for the death of Oberyn. And now I kind of wonder if the Sand Snakes leading a war against the Seven Kingdoms is replacing Aegon's invasion. And now begins the Bad Pussy Rebellion. But seriously, I can kind of see where D&D are going with this. They wanted to skip quite a few chapters and just get to the end political climate in Dorne. And they kind of got there through these actions, so I sort of see some reasoning in what they're doing. It just wasn't executed as well as it could have been. My question here. There might be a house or two in Dorne that has been rebelling against the Martells for quite a long time. Do the Sand Snakes have the house's loyalty? Are we pretending that other houses don't exist in the show? I don't think we're going to see a civil war in Dorne where another house takes over the throne, but I really want to see how far the loyalty to Illyria goes. Is it just the palace? A few houses? What? Lastly, Arya and Braavos. Yeah, her storyline is different, but I still think they're doing a great job, and I'm very intrigued by it. I really have no complaints about Arya, but we also didn't see her a lot this episode. So overall, despite anything I may have said in this review, I do think it was a great episode. I think there were things that were poorly executed. I think there were some lines that fell flat, but that's kind of expected in any show. And Dorne is to be seen where they're going with it. Right now, I'm not overly happy, but I can see that maybe they're bringing it somewhere that's going to be a lot better. So what are your thoughts on this episode? What were your favorite parts, your least favorite parts? And have you signed up for the Bad Pussy Rebellion? Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel out a lot. Besides that, make sure you come back for Star Wars videos, Game of Thrones videos, comic videos, and anything sci-fi fantasy related.